Now, let's talk about the two players I think are of most intrigue and right now and realistic to be
Mhm.
available at number 5, because I don't think Will Smith will be available at 5. But um, the two players that have at least got more people's attention now that we're looking more into now as being available at number 5, Zach Benson.
Yeah.
So this is a player that has some folks interested. If you want to go by Craig Button's comparable, he compares him to Johnny Gaudreau, which
Mhm.
sometimes you got to take with what Craig Button says with a grain of salt. We all know how the 2021 Leafs Habs playoff run went.
Yeah.
We always give him a hard time about that, right? But watching Zach Benson, definitely intrigued by his offensive ability and just the way he looks on his skates. He does kind of remind you of Johnny Gaudreau a little bit, sure,
A little.
but you know I think that I'm not quite sold on him yet, although some folks feel, as one gentleman did on the Sick podcast the other day with Tony Marinaro, that he's going to be an elite talent in the
Mhm.
NHL. So, what are your thoughts on Zach Benson right now, Shanner?
I would not be mad whatsoever if we picked him. If he's there, and we say that the risk on Mitchkov is too high, and we go Benson, I'm completely fine with that. He's undersized. He's 5'9". He's not a short guy per se, but for the NHL standards, he's undersized. Fine. But he is the best player on his team, the Winnipeg Ice, which is loaded. They have Matt Savoie, they have Connor Geekie, they have Carson Lambos, and he is the best player on that team. He's not even drafted yet. His compete level is really through the roof. It's among the best of this draft class. Every single shift, he gives everything he has, constantly driving the puck, constantly moving. So his energy, right? His compete is insanely good. And his talent as well. Like he's a magician with the puck. He can do all sorts of things. And he's a point producer, like 98 points in 60 games in the WHL. Fantastic. In the playoffs, he's at 13 points in 11 games. Over a point per game in the playoffs when it matters most is really what you want to see. That's critical. And his team has a chance to go to the Mem Cup. So keep an eye on Zach Benson. I'm fairly high on him. But again, if we go a different route with the guy you're going to mention next, I'm also not mad whatsoever.
Yeah. So, why don't we just jump into it? So, I'm just going to tell you guys who the player is that I personally have, at least as of right now, he's my guy. This is him right here, like Ryan Leonard, and currently he is ranked at 7th out of 12 overall on Bob
Mm-hmm.
McKenzie's list, and I reference Bob's list because I do trust it, and there are other lists that we can look at too. But after taking a bit of a dive here on Ryan Leonard and just kind of watching him, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this guy skate and drive the net was just, he's a horse. This guy's a workhorse, man. Like, I watched Connor McDavid last night drive the net, and it's natural for him to do it because that's what McDavid does, and it's hard to stop. But I'm like, how many guys, like how many forwards on the Canadians do you ever just see just have a nose for the net, other than like Brendan Gallagher just being out front of the goal mouth, you know? But in terms of like, he's got like Ryan Leonard to me, he's got the explosive skating. He's got the work ethic. He's got the compete, like you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, I saw a guy who just doesn't stop skating and also just drives the net fearlessly.
Yep.
And you mentioned his shot. And for me, out of all the guys I've watched in terms of players that the Canadians could realistically take, Ryan Leonard certainly jumped out to me. He's a right winger. And even just looking at this guy, I'm actually going to do a bit of a screen share. I know it sounds funny, but when it comes to, like, sometimes you look at a guy and I'm like, this guy looks like a man. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at, like, this kid looks like a man. Like, he just looks like he's already an NHLer. I don't know, something about him. He just looks like he has the maturity and the poise of somebody that has already been there. Like, he's
That's
already
it.
been in the NHL. I don't know. Like, he just has that maturity. He just seems to have that look of a kid who's already ready. Like, to me, he looks more NHL ready than some of the guys that we've just talked about. Maybe not Will
Yep.
Smith. We know Fantilli and Bedard are going to be in the NHL, but I don't know about Carlson yet. I don't know if he's ready with that frame of his. He's still got a bit more of his frame to fill out. Will Smith does look like he's NHL ready to me, but in terms of Benson. Like, I'm not sure if Zach Benson is quite ready yet, but to me, when I look at Ryan Leonard, I'm like, this guy could be in the NHL next year. Shaner, what are your thoughts on this player? Because as of right now, he's my guy.
Yeah, not rightfully so. I mean, for me, like the four realistic possibilities at 5 that I would love is, Michkov, granted, if the risk is worth taking, Will Smith, Zach Benson, and Ryan Leonard for sure. I'd be happy with any of those guys. 94 points in 57 games. More importantly, 51 goals in 57 games. So he's almost a goal per game guy, which is very impressive. Granted, he played on one of the best lines we've ever seen at the U.S. National Development Program with Will Smith and Gabe Perreault.
Yes.
But at the at the U18s, he had 17 points in 7 games. So any level, really, he steps up, and he's that guy. And he's going to play with Will Smith again next season at Boston College in the NCAA. But, I mean, he's everything you want, really. Like, he's the whole package. The only reason why we're talking about other guys is that the other guys just have absurd talent, right? But he's also very talented. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the guys we mentioned. I think, we've heard rumors about Dvorsky and Reinbacher, David Reinbacher. Those would be a reach for me. I don't think there's a need for that. Reinbacher is probably the best D in this draft, but we don't really need a D. Like, we have plenty. So you have to go for pure offensive skill at number 5, and any of the 4 guys that I just talked about fit that mold completely. Ryan Leonard being one of those. I'd be thrilled if we picked him.
Like, he reminds me of like a more skilled Josh Anderson. Like, I think
I could see that.
I thought of it just a minute ago here because they're the only other player that drives the net, like Power Horse.
Yeah,
we mentioned the Power Horse Josh Anderson. He's still here. He's still a Montreal Canadian. But to me, Ryan Leonard could be that more skilled, talented version of Josh Anderson. A little bit shorter, of course, because he's 5'11". He's basically built at just under 6 feet.
Yeah.
So they have him at like 6'11" and a half.
Yeah,
so
6
TSN's got him at 5'11" and a half. So he's 6 foot. But to me, I love guys who work. Like we just watched again, like mentioning the Leafs in the playoffs, and like you got a guy like Austin Matthews, who's their superstar talent, one of the most talented players in the world. But where's the work? Where's the drive? Why aren't so like I want players personally, man. I want players that just want it more. I don't care if you're not the most talented player in the league or the most talented player in this draft. I want the guys who want it more and therefore will get it because they're working harder than the other players. Like that's what excites me. That's what kind of gets me fired up to look at drafting a player of this caliber. Maybe I'm propping him up a little too much. It's too soon. But for me, based on everybody I watched, Ryan Leonard was the most impressive to me, passing the eye test.
Yeah. And the compete level, right? The drive that you talk about, you can't be taught, right? Like you have to have it in you. It's got to be innate. And a lot of players in this draft class do have that, which is why it's so phenomenal. But Ryan Leonard is certainly among the top. Zach Benson as well. Like their compete level is just through the roof. Man, like I'm getting excited just thinking about this draft. It's over a month from now, but we cannot screw this up. Pick at 5 with this deep draft, like is a game changer. It's a game changer. We're getting a first line potential forward, and please don't screw this up, man. Please. But I have faith. You know what? I have faith. I have a lot of faith in this management group, because you look at last year's draft, right? We got some steals in the second round and some picks that required a whole lot of balls. Like I was mentioning, right? Lane Hudson, again, shouldn't have been available at 62. Was it 62? Whatever. Yes, in the second round. He shouldn't have been there, right? So again, we jumped on that, but I don't know why teams passed up on him. I'm glad we didn't. But Slav, that took some balls. Right. And he is the most NHL ready player from that draft class. So I know that our team of scouts and management will do their due diligence. They will go hard on the interviews. They will go hard on the videos, and they will make the best decision. I'm certain of that.